Prime Time. I'm Tamanna Inamdar.
And my name is Ayush Alavadi. Let's have a look at today's headlines. The Indian equity benchmark slipped to a near two-week low as metal stocks stumble on Donald Trump's proposed duty hike on steel and aluminium imports.
Sun Pharma may finally have good news from its HALOL facility. Bloomberg Quint learns that the US FDA's observations are procedural and don't point to any data integrity issues.
The budget session resumes to protests. Both houses of parliament get adjourned as the opposition demands a discussion on the PNB scam.
Rahul Gandhi says the BJP usurped power in Meghalaya through a proxy, adds that the Congress will work hard to win back the trust of the people of the Northeast.
Air Arabia says it's not interested in Air India's full-service operation, says the Indian carrier will not fit into its business model.
And The Shape of Water wins big at the 90th Academy Awards, bagging 4 Oscars, including Best Film and Best Director.
Well, straight up, it wasn't an ideal start to the week for the markets as the benchmark equities slipped to near two-week lows. US President Donald Trump's proposal to impose higher duty on steel and aluminium imports weighed on metal stocks. Both the Nifty and the Sensex ended the trading session with cuts of close to 1%. Neeraj Shah sums up the day's market action in this report.
It was a quiet day of trade for the Nifty bank, if you will, but the Nifty, the Sensex and the mid-cap and the small-cap indices came off. So Nifty and the Sensex about 1% apiece. The Nifty bank did reasonably okay, to be honest. Look at that, just about 1/3%. The Nifty mid-cap and the BSE small-cap indices, though, took a beating as well, about 1% lower, and the market breadth was terrible. I should start off with the losers, so let's do that. Metals came off. The trade war rhetoric really playing part out here. Hindalco, Tata Steel, Vedanta, Nalco, JSPL, almost everything came off on the indices today. Aurobindo Pharma was a laggard. The US FDA concerns coming back to haunt this one. 9 observations, and that didn't sit down too well with this one. Tata Motors is arguably now trading at 2-year lows, 352 and counting, and it remains a cheap Sensex stock which just doesn't seem to see any kind of buying coming in. What did well? Sun Pharma. This is a Bloomberg Quint exclusive. Observations not critical is what Bloomberg Quint learns from sources, and that's why that stock did very well once we released that piece of news. Well, IT did well even otherwise. So Tech Mahindra, TCS were a couple of names which had a reasonable session in trade today. BEML surged almost close to 10% because the stake sale has now found an in-principle nod from the government. So that one rallied about 10.5 or 11%. Other stocks which gained today, Phoenix Mills about 7%, Thomas Cook about 6%. So these were amongst the top gainers in the session today. Wakrangi, surprise, surprise, after days and days of a downtick, went up about 5%. So good going for this stock too in the session today. But all in all, while the Nifty Bank did reasonably okay and survived that level about 200-day moving average, we can't say the same for the other indices.
Now, another factor adding to the negative sentiment in the markets was data from the Indian services sector. Services growth contracted in February following to a 6-month low. The Nikkei India Services PMI fell from 51.7 in January to 47.8 in February, its lowest level since August. A reading below 50 indicates a contraction.
All right, it's time for a Bloomberg Quint exclusive. Sun Pharma may be third time lucky. Sources say that the US FDA has made only some minor observations on its HALOL facility. Darshan Mehta gets us all the details about what these observations are all about in this report.
What US FDA has clearly indicated is the fact that they have received 3 observations. Now, in terms of what these observations are, let's take a look at the 3 observations. The first observation that comes out is poor upkeep of equipment. They talk about some rust that was found in some of the equipment, as per sources what have indicated. The secondly is certain instances of wrong incubation for determining microbiological contamination, and finally the last is procedural lapses include in inadequate training. So these are all what sources have indicated to us, and don't look serious at this point of time, look pretty much procedural. Now, certain things that we want to point out is the fact that Bloomberg Quint is not in possession of the Form 483. We reached out to Sun Pharma. Initially, they had not replied, but later they said that, they do not want to comment on or decline to comment on the entire issue. And the US FDA said that they will respond to the queries as soon as possible, but they haven't responded yet. Now, why is HALOL important? It's one of the largest plants. In September, they had 23 observations in their inspection that came down to 9, and now there are just 3. And if this gets cleared, a lot of pending approvals are there for Sun Pharma. And even though in terms of revenue from the plant it's come down, but the future is definitely there. A lot of Spark products, a lot of Sun Pharma products, future filing are dependent on HALOL. So if this gets cleared, it'll be a big boost up for Sun Pharma.
Now let's talk about the PNB fraud probe, where the CBI is working hard to build a rock-solid case against all the accused. Charlene D'Souza has been tracking all the developments from the CBI court. Charlene, what's the update today?
The CBI court has remanded the 4 arrested in the 12,700 crore PNB fraud case till 17th of March. Now, 3 of the people arrested by CBI are from Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksi companies, while 1 is an auditor from audit firm CA firm Sampath and Mehta. The Auditors Council argued that he had alerted the income tax authorities of these unsecured loans, and he was already cooperating with the investigating agencies, because of which he need not be taken into police custody for custody till the 17th of March. The CBI court, however, said that the custodial interrogation is necessary as the investigating officer needs a fair chance to investigate the matter thoroughly. The special court also sent Vipul Ambani, Kavita Mankikar, Arjun Patil, Kapil Khandelwal, Nitin Shahi, Rajesh Shahi to judicial custody.
All right, Charlene, thanks so much for that update. Now, on to the first day of the second half of the budget session. Both houses of parliament were adjourned after the opposition created a ruckus over the PNB fraud case. With the TMC leading the charge, opposition MPs advanced to the chair's podium, shouting slogans against the government over the multi-crore scam. Meanwhile, the TDP members of parliament protested, demanding special category status for Andhra Pradesh. Both the houses were adjourned twice before being adjourned for the day.
Now let's get you some reactions. Rail Minister Piyush Goyal said the government was cleaning up the mess that began under the Congress, while Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha, Ghulam Nabi Azad, says that the government owes them an explanation on the PNB fraud. Listen in.
का जो विषय है ये पूरी तरीके से कांग्रेस से जुड़ा हुआ है। कांग्रेस के समय में समस्या शुरू हुई। भारतीय जनता पार्टी प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में जो सफाई कर रही है, जिस प्रकार से पुराने सब भ्रष्टाचार के कांड निकाल रही है, जिस प्रकार से पुराने जितने ये ऋण ये लोन गलत लोगों को दिए गए, गलत प्रथाएं चलती थी, उसको सुधार में लगी हुई है। ये सुधार का कार्यक्रम कांग्रेस को बच नहीं रहा है, इसलिए वो डाइवर्सरी टैक्टिक्स विषय से देश को गुमराह करने के लिए ये विषय सामने लाते हैं।
हमारी एक दफा मांग यह है फिर कि सरकार माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी लोकसभा और राज्यसभा में आए और ये सदन के द्वारा भारत की जनता को बताएं कि उन्होंने क्या कार्रवाई करी है इन 3-4 बड़े बैंक घोटाला करने वाले लोगों को वापस देश में लाने की।
Moving on, Essar Steel's resolution professional wants more time to submit his recommendations on the final bids. The committee of lenders who was slotted to meet today have now had to defer it to a later date. Vishwanath Nair has all the details in this report.
So what we understand from the banking sources who are part of the Essar Steel resolution process is that Satish Kumar Gupta, the resolution professional who was appointed in Essar Steel, has pushed this meeting to Wednesday. The meeting was supposed to happen earlier today, wherein the lenders were supposed to be given a report on the eligibility of the 2 bidders who have submitted their resolution plans for Essar Steel. Now this meeting will be pushed to Wednesday, when the lenders will finally get to know what the eligibility stands are. At this point in time, the lenders are not privy to any of the details of the resolution plans that have been submitted. The two bidders, remember, one is New Metal, which is promoted by VTB Capital, VTB Bank, and one of the shareholders in New Metal is also Revant Ruya, who is the son of the co-founder of Essar Group, Ravi Ruya. On the other hand, we have ArcelorMittal, who has tied up with Nippon Steel for a bid for Essar Steel. Now, remember that ArcelorMittal was a promoter for Uttam Galva Steel, which is a company that is already going through its own insolvency process. So, again, in both these cases, the connected parties or the promoters of companies which are NPAs may apply. That is the doubt that is being talked about at this point in time, and we will get to know what the resolution professional and his lawyers think of the legality of both these bids and the eligibility under these under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code.
Now, after failing to form a government in 3 northeastern states of India, Congress President Rahul Gandhi took to Twitter and said that the Congress party respects the mandate of the people of Tripura, Nagaland and Meghalaya and is committed to strengthening the party across the northeast to win back the trust of the people. He also thanked each and every Congress worker who toiled for the party despite having the highest share of seats in Meghalaya. The Congress is unable to form the government as the National People's Party-led coalition bagged 34 seats, thus claiming stake to form the state government under the leadership of Conrad Sangma. Showcasing a remarkable performance, the BJP and its allies swept Tripura and Nagaland with a thumping majority.
नागालैंड अपने आप में एक बहुत क्लासिक टेक्टोनिक शिफ्ट है इन द पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ इंडिया। बीजेपी ने 20 उम्मीदवार उतारे, 12 जीते और हमें 15% वोट मिला है, एक ऐसे प्रदेश में जहां 88% क्रिश्चियन है। दिस इज अ न्यू फेज ऑफ कंट्रीज पॉलिटिक्स।
बाइपोल स्टडी करने से यू कैन मेक इट वेरी क्लियर दैट there will be a change happening. This is based on the mood of the nation today. Even in Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, now on bipoll was held. This is not big talk. This is based on logic. This is what we are very clearly saying, that in 2019 there will be the Prime Minister's address from the Red Fort, but that address will not be delivered by Narendra Bhai Modi.
A lot of big developments post the election results on Saturday. Meghalaya has now slipped from the grasp of the Congress party. Meanwhile, Telangana Chief Minister KCR is talking about a third front. The BSP and the SP have tied up for 2 bipolar elections in Uttar Pradesh. What are the big issues and factors on the road to 2019? Looking at all of these developments, that's what we're going to be discussing this evening on Primetime Debate. I'm speaking with senior journalist Aarti Jairat, spokesperson from the BJP Suresh Nakhwa, and from the Congress party Zarita Lifelong is joining us on that conversation.
Of course, that's on Primetime Debate. Now, the Staff Election Commission exam aspirants have refused to call off their protests against the alleged paper leak scam. This comes after Home Minister Rajnath Singh ordered a CBI probe into the case today. Since February 27th, the students have been protesting on the streets of Delhi, seeking a CBI probe in what they term as mass cheating. On February 24th, the SSC had released a notice saying that the exam held on February 21st was delayed due to technical reasons and will be reconducted on March 9th, 2018. The Supreme Court will hear a plea seeking an investigation into the alleged SSC paper leak.
And in other national news, Karti Chidambaram has moved the Supreme Court seeking to quash the Enforcement Directorate's summons against him in the INX media case. Karti has challenged the summons on the ground that the ED has no jurisdiction to issue such notices based on the FIR lodged by the CBI. The top court had earlier refused to stay the summons issued by the ED, saying he could make a request in this regard to the competent authority. The Apex Court will hear that plea tomorrow.
Well, in other news, the Supreme Court today asked realtor Unitech to file a detailed affidavit of their assets both in India and abroad. This comes after an order from the top court in December staying the NCLT order which barred Unitech directors from acting as co-directors of the company over alleged mismanagement of funds. Remember, Unitech owes 723 crore rupees to 51,000 fixed deposit holders, and the company and its subsidiaries are yet to deliver 19,000 flats to home buyers.
Now, Air Arabia has ruled out any move to buy into debt-laden national carrier Air India. Speaking to Bloomberg Quint, the airline's CEO, Adil Abdullah Ali, says the deal does not make sense as Air India Express is not on the table. He says it won't help Air Arabia's business as Air India is a conventional airline and not a budget service like Air Arabia.
We're very happy to start operation to 13 airports. Something that back in 2005 we said that we make sure we connect people between all the smaller airports and the metros in India to UAE. And we've done that, and I think the public has benefited from, and we as an airline has benefited on both sides.
We have the Indian government which has put Air India on the divestment as a airline from the Middle East. Have you looked at Air India and how does it fit into your entire scheme of plan as far as synergies are concerned? And if it doesn't, why do you think it doesn't fit?
Well, simply to our understanding that the government of India's announcement was they wished that Air India is on the offer, but Air India Express is still retained by the government. Our business is a low-cost business model. Air India is a conventional airline. So the two business models are very, very different, and this is why it doesn't fit.
And if at all, if the government plans to bring out Air India Express also as part of the divestment, will you be interested in it?
Well, I guess it's a hypothetical question because at the moment it's not on the table. Once that decision is made, if it's ever makes, then one would think about it. But at the moment, it's not on the offer.
President Donald Trump has started a potential global trade war. America has decided to impose a 25% import duty on steel and a 10% import duty on aluminium. President Trump tweeted saying trade wars are good and easy to win. American companies, from car manufacturers to beer makers, are worrying about supply of raw materials, higher costs and reduced competitiveness. President Trump's move has also spurred warnings of harsh economic and political ramifications from some Republican lawmakers and provoked threats of retaliation from allies such as the European Union. In a reply to Donald Trump, Chief of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, said, "Now we will also impose import tariffs on Harley-Davidson bikes and on Levi's jeans. Been here before."
Now, Kansas University Professor Raj Bhalla believes this is a slippery slope both economically and politically as more and more countries impose duties on more products, especially if they start to invoke the national security clause. Listen in.
The worst case scenario is a global trade war that covers many more commodities beyond steel and aluminum and also results in World Trade Organization challenges to the United States, which the United States then invokes the national security exception, and if it loses the case, simply ignores the WTO ruling. And even if it wins the case, other countries start invoking that same exception, and we're headed down a slippery slope of many countries taking so-called national security actions. So it's both a parade of horribles economically and politically.
India does not seem overtly worried about the import tariff. The reason is simple, perhaps. Only a very small quantity of the steel produced in India makes it all the way to America. That said, it doesn't mean that Indian steelmakers don't get affected at all by this move. Nikki Mirchandani, who's been scanning through all the brokerage reports on this particular topic, gets us all the details.
U.S. Department of Commerce has actually suggested that, the recommendation on Section 232 investigation under the national security purposes suggested, Trump hinted that there will be a new policy which is expected to be unveiled this week, wherein it has proposed a 25% hike on the imports of steel and 10% hike on, for that matter, for aluminium imports. Before we get on to the impact, let's understand which all countries exports to US and their percentage share in them each. If you look at the percentage, the high exposure is of Canada, Brazil and Korea, which stand at 17, 14 and 10% respectively. India and China relatively have a low exposure to US exports, as much as 2% for that matter. HSBC Global Research pretty much puts across that point. It says that there is a very minimal impact of the direct impact of this development on the steel producing companies. However, it does also says that these measures are positive for US-based mills, but then are negative for the countries which are exporting to US, because of which the exports are expected to be rerouted and there could be some pricing pressure. Given that even a 1% drop is seen in terms of the domestic price, there could be a 2 to 10% contraction in terms of the top steel players' EBITDA. If you look at the sensitivity analysis chart put out here, you would see Tata Steel and JSW Steel EBITDA could contract by as much as 5% in FY19 if there is a single % drop in domestic steel prices. The magnitude is higher for SAIL at 10%, and that for JSPL is at around 2.3%. Morgan Stanley also pretty much reiterates the same point. However, it says that the Hindalco downstream operation, that is Novelis, will tend to get impacted by this development and will have some bearings on the financial, given that Novelis actually has sourced a lot of aluminium requirements locally, and escalation in the prices there would lead to a higher input pressure for this company. Having said that, it however feels that given the export rerouting, imports to India is unlikely, and even if there are incremental imports or incremental supply that the country could face, the demand at 6 to 7% could take care of this incremental supply situation.
Okay, now moving on to news from the Oscars. The Shape of Water has been crowned Best Picture at the 90th Academy Awards. The movie, which narrates the story of a mute woman, has bagged a total of 4 Oscars, including Best Director and Screenplay. Frances McDormand won for her lead role in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, while Gary Oldman was voted Best Actor for his portrayal of Winston Churchill in The Darkest Hour. Late Bollywood actors Sridevi and Shashi Kapoor were also honored in the memoriam montage at the Oscars.
It's been a very eventful weekend. What happened in the Northeast and then the Oscars.
And the Northeast story has actually continued to develop over the last few hours as well. Nothing is as it seems. The BJP and its allies are in control in Meghalaya, but in Nagaland there is a bit of a tussle going on. Moreover, the Northeast elections have a bigger message for the rest of the elections in 2018 and 2019. There is suddenly talk of a third front after the Northeast elections. SP and BSP have become friends. So what are all the big pointers on that road to 2019? That's the chat coming up on Primetime Debate. We have a great panel to speak with us on what all of these issues mean. Do tune in.